It was midnight, and the city slept under heavy clouds. The streets outside were quiet. Only the sound of the wind moved between the dark buildings. Inside his small apartment, he sat alone, staring at the pale glow of his phone. The night felt normal, almost boring, until he heard it. A knock, slow and sharp, 3 times against his door. He froze, his heart skipping a beat. No one ever came at this hour. He lived alone, and most people in this building barely spoke to each other. He thought maybe it was a mistake, maybe the sound came from another door. But then it came again, louder this time, deliberate. Someone was waiting. He stood slowly, every step toward the door heavy with tension. The air felt colder, the silence outside pressing against the walls. His hand trembled slightly as he reached for the handle. Something inside told him not to open it. Yet curiosity, sharp and unshakable, pulled him forward. The lock clicked, and the door swung open. At first, he saw only the hallway, dim light, cracked paint, shadows stretching far. Then he saw her. A woman stood there, tall, her figure framed by the weak hallway light. Her hair shimmered strangely, almost catching the dim light like silver threads. Her eyes glowed faintly, not normal, not human. And when she spoke, her voice was soft, calm, but chilling. "Do you still remember me, human?" He felt his breath stop. The words struck him like an old dream returning. There was something in her tone, familiar, almost gentle, but wrapped in mystery. She stepped closer, her gaze fixed on him as if she had been searching for him for years. He tried to speak, but no words came. He only stared at her face, and slowly, painfully, a memory tugged at him. The shape of her eyes, the curve of her smile. It was impossible, but it was real. She looked like someone he had once known, someone from long ago, a girl who used to live next door when he was just a child, a neighbor who laughed easily, who always asked strange questions about the stars, a girl who disappeared one day without a trace. "No," he whispered under his breath. "It can't be." Her lips curved into a faint smile, one that held both sadness and longing. "Yes," she answered quietly. "I was your childhood neighbor, the one you played with, the one who left without goodbye." His chest tightened, his thoughts racing. That girl was gone, vanished many years ago. And yet here she was, standing in front of him, not as a girl, but as something else. Something beautiful, something alien. Her skin seemed too smooth, too flawless, almost shining under the faint light. Her presence filled the air with a strange energy, like electricity before a storm. He wanted to shut the door, to run, but he couldn't move. Something in her eyes held him in place. Memories rushed back, running in the small yard, sharing candy, whispering secrets as children. She had always been curious about the night sky, always pointing upward and asking if he thought life existed out there. Back then, he laughed and said no. Now, looking at her, he wasn't laughing. He was terrified, and yet drawn to her. "Where have you been?" he finally managed to ask, his voice rough. "Why do you look like this?" She tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "I returned home," she said softly, "but my home is not what you thought, not what anyone here thought." Her voice lowered, carrying a heavy truth. "My family was never from this world. We lived here in secret until it was time to leave." His legs weakened, and he stepped back, gripping the edge of the door. "You're not human," he whispered. Her eyes glowed brighter, almost sorrowful. "Not anymore," she said, "but I still remember you." The words pierced through him deeper than the fear, because behind her alien presence, behind the glowing eyes and strange aura, he could still see her. The same girl who once laughed beside him, who once called his name under the summer sun. Now changed, now transformed, but somehow still her. The silence between them grew heavy. Only the hum of the city, far away, broke the moment. Then she leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I did not come back from memories alone," she said. "I came because I need you." His pulse thundered, confusion twisting with fear. Why him? Why after all these years? And what could someone like her possibly need from someone like him? But before he could ask, she took a slow breath, as if fighting with herself. Her glowing eyes softened, but her words turned darker. "They will come soon," she warned. "And when they do, you will not be safe anymore." The air in the room felt heavier. The shadows seemed to stretch. A chill ran down his spine. This was no dream, no memory. This was the beginning of something far larger than his life had ever been. He stared at her, unable to decide if he should slam the door or let her in. But in his heart, one thing was certain. The past he thought was gone had returned, and it had come wrapped in mystery, danger, and the strange, haunting beauty of the girl who was no longer human. He closed the door slowly, his hand still shaking. The woman, or whatever she was, stood inside his small apartment now, her strange glow softening the darkness. For a long moment, he simply stared at her, his mind pulled between fear and recognition. He remembered a girl, a little neighbor who used to run through the narrow street barefoot, laughing as if the world was only a game. Her name he had almost forgotten, but the memory of her voice, light and curious, still lived somewhere deep inside. She would knock on his window at night, whispering about stars, asking if he ever dreamed of leaving Earth. Back then, he laughed at her wild imagination. Now he wondered if those questions had been more than just childish games. "If you look like her," he finally said, his voice uneven. "But that girl vanished years ago. Her family vanished too. No one ever knew what happened." The woman's eyes softened, glowing faintly as if carrying both sorrow and guilt. "That was the day we were called back," she whispered. "I wanted to tell you, but I was forbidden. My family feared discovery. They feared what humans might do if they knew the truth." He took a step back, memories crashing over him. He was only 10 when she disappeared. He remembered knocking on her empty door, the windows sealed, the house cold and abandoned overnight. The adults gave no answers, only shrugs and silence. He thought they had moved away, like many families did. But the truth, what she was telling him now, was far stranger, far heavier. "You mean, all this time, you weren't human?" he asked. His words felt bitter on his tongue, as if his childhood had been rewritten in a single night. She nodded slowly. "I was human enough to laugh with you, to share secrets, to dream," she said. "But inside me was always something more, something waiting to awaken." Her words twisted in his mind. He tried to connect the child he once knew, the girl who shared candy and asked silly questions, with the alien beauty standing before him. It felt impossible, yet the memory of her smile, her playful eyes, matched the woman before him too perfectly to deny. He remembered summer evenings, the two of them sitting by the curb, watching the sky grow darker. She had always asked if he thought someone out there might be watching them, and he always answered no, telling her Earth was too small, too ordinary. Now, years later, the irony struck him cruelly. The one who asked those questions had never truly been from Earth at all. His chest grew tight. He wanted to feel anger for being lied to, for being left behind without a word. But as he looked at her, he felt something else too. A strange pull, a connection that time and distance hadn't broken. "You remember the old oak tree at the end of the street?" she asked suddenly, her voice soft. He blinked, caught off guard. "Yes, we carved our names there," he said slowly. The memory was sharp now. Two children with a small knife, scratching letters into the bark, a promise to never forget each other. His heart sank. That tree had been cut down years ago, replaced by concrete and silence. But the memory was alive, and she carried it with her still. Her lips curved into a sad smile. "I told you I would come back," she whispered. "And you laughed. You said I was making up stories, but I meant it." His throat tightened. Back then, he had never believed her. He thought children never kept promises. Yet here she was, standing in his room after all these years, not as a girl, but as something both wondrous and terrifying. For a moment, he saw her not as an alien, not as a stranger, but as the same child who once promised to return. And the weight of that memory pressed hard against his fear. But then her expression shifted, her eyes darkening like storm clouds. There is something else you must know, she said carefully. Her voice carried a warning, a shadow of danger. We were not the only ones hiding on Earth. He frowned, his stomach tightening. What do you mean? Her gaze moved to the window, as if scanning the night beyond. There are others, she whispered. Others who are not like me, not like my family. They hunt, they destroy, and now they have followed me here. The room grew colder, the silence heavier. He felt the walls closing in as if the world outside was no longer safe. And for the first time, he realized that her return was not simply about memories, not about promises. It was about survival. You shouldn't have come, he said quietly, fear rising in his chest. But she shook her head, her silver-like hair shimmering in the dim light. I had to, she whispered, her voice breaking, because you're the only part of this world I could never forget. Her words lingered like an echo of their childhood. But the danger she spoke of loomed closer, wrapping their reunion in shadows. And deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. The silence in the room was heavy, pressing like unseen hands on his chest. She stood near the window, her glowing eyes searching the night, as if she expected shadows to rise at any moment. He wanted to demand answers, to force her to explain everything at once, but his voice caught in his throat. At last, she turned back to him, her face calm but her eyes carrying a storm. You deserve the truth, she whispered. I was not just your neighbor. I was never meant to be here at all. Her words fell sharp. He waited, frozen, as she drew closer, her presence filling the room with that strange energy again. The air felt alive, humming faintly, as though every object was watching, listening. When I was a child, I looked human, she said softly. I laughed, I played, I ran with you. But inside me there was a secret. My family was hiding here, not because we loved Earth, but because we had no choice. His brow furrowed. No choice? What do you mean? She lowered her gaze, her voice trembling between honesty and regret. My people were refugees, escaping from war far beyond stars. Earth was only a temporary home, a place to blend in, to survive. We lived beside humans like shadows, pretending to be like you. And when the signal came, the call to return, we left overnight. He felt his stomach twist. All those years of questions, all the confusion of her sudden disappearance. And the truth was this: not death, not moving away, but escape across the stars. Her hands trembled slightly as she spoke. I wanted to say goodbye to you, but I was forbidden. Humans were not to know of us. Not then, not ever. Yet even as I left, I carried your memory with me. Your face, your laughter, it stayed with me when everything else changed. His throat tightened. A flood of childhood moments returned. Her laughter in the summer air, her questions about the stars, her promise at the oak tree. And now he understood why those moments had always felt different. They had been real, but not normal. She had always been more than she appeared. He wanted to speak, but she stepped closer, her voice lowering. My return is not by chance, not only because of memories, she said. There is something darker behind it, something that threatens both you and me. Her eyes glowed brighter, their light catching the shadows of the room. He swallowed hard, forcing the words out. What threatens us? For a moment, she did not answer, as if weighing how much truth he could endure. Then she whispered, Hunters, they're the reason my people fled in the first place. They do not forgive, they do not forget, and they have followed my trail back here. His chest tightened. Hunters. He imagined faceless monsters in the dark sky, ships tearing through the night. Why me? He asked suddenly, his voice rough. Why come back to me if you're being chased? You're putting me in danger too. Her face softened, sorrow in her glowing eyes. I came back because I needed more than safety, she admitted. I needed an anchor, something to remind me of who I was before the war. And you are that anchor. You are the one who keeps me from losing myself completely. Her words struck him harder than fear itself. The way she said them, gentle yet desperate, made his chest ache. Behind her alien beauty, behind her glowing presence. She was still that girl who once shared her secrets under the stars. But his mind was torn. Half of him wanted to push her away, to escape before these so-called hunters arrived. The other half was drawn to her, bound by memories and the strange pull that never broke. She stepped closer again, the distance between them almost gone. "You have a choice," she whispered. "You can turn away, pretend this night never happened, or you can stand with me, and together we may survive what is coming." Her words were heavy, not a request, but a crossroads. His heart pounded as he stared into her eyes. The glow was frightening, but deep inside them, he still saw the same spark of the girl who once promised never to forget him. The city outside remained silent, but the silence no longer felt safe. Somewhere above, unseen in the night sky, he imagined shadows moving, watching, waiting. The hunters she spoke of were not a story. They were real, and they were close. He wanted to ask 1,000 questions, what they looked like, what they wanted, how they found her. But before he could, she raised her hand. The air shimmered, glowing faintly between her fingers, bending like liquid light. "This is what I am now," she said, her voice calm but heavy. "This power is not human, but it is the only thing keeping us alive tonight." He stumbled back, breath catching. The light in her hand curved like fire and water at once, both beautiful and terrifying. And as it faded, leaving only shadows again, she looked at him with quiet sadness. "I'm not asking you to trust me blindly," she whispered. "I'm only asking you to remember me. Remember the girl you once knew, and believe that part of her still lives inside me." His heart thundered in his chest, torn between fear and something deeper. He did remember, and that memory, once sweet, now felt like both salvation and doom. Outside, in the distance, a strange hum rolled through the sky, faint but growing. She turned sharply, her glowing eyes narrowing. "They are here," she said, her voice low. The room fell silent again, but this silence carried a promise of danger. And in that moment, he knew his life would never be ordinary again. The hum outside grew louder, trembling through the glass of the window. He froze, his breath shallow, while she moved closer to the window with steady steps, her glowing eyes fixed on the night sky. The city below seemed calm, unaware of the danger that pressed against the silence above. "What is that sound?" he whispered, his voice breaking. Her answer was quiet but sharp. "The hunters, they found me." The air in the room shifted, heavy and cold. He looked outside but saw only clouds, gray and thick, hiding the sky. Then, just for a moment, he thought he saw shapes moving inside the mist, faint lights blinking in strange patterns, like predators circling unseen. His chest tightened. This was no dream, no story. Something vast and dangerous hovered above their world, and it was hunting the woman who once lived as his neighbor. She turned away from the window, her face set with calm determination. "You must stay close to me now," she said, her voice firm. "They do not come for you, but if they see you with me, they will not hesitate." He swallowed hard, fear mixing with disbelief. His mind screamed to run, to hide, to shut the door on this nightmare. But his body would not move. The memory of her childhood smile and the strange pull he felt toward her now anchored him in place. A sudden flash of light cut through the window. Not lightning, but a beam, cold, white, and sharp, that swept across the building as if scanning for life. The sound followed, a low growl that vibrated deep in his chest. He stumbled back, his legs weak, while she raised her hand. The air shimmered again, the same way it had before, bending like glass under heat. A thin barrier of light spread across the walls, invisible but humming with power. "They will not see us yet," she whispered, "but this shield will not last long." His pulse thundered in his ears. "What do they want?" he asked, desperation breaking in his voice. "Why follow you across the stars?" Her eyes darkened, glowing with sorrow. "They want to erase us," she said softly. "My people once stood against them, and for that crime they will never forgive. To them, I am not just one woman. I am a target, a reminder of what they failed to destroy. The words sank heavy in the room. He tried to imagine entire worlds at war, entire species hunted, and she standing here as the last thread of story far larger than his life had ever been. The hum outside sharpened into a shriek, metal grinding in the sky. The glass rattled as shadows passed by, faint silhouettes of ships drifting above the clouds. Predators circling closer. He gripped the table, fear wrapping around him like chains. "What do we do?" he asked. Her answer came without hesitation. "We survive." The barrier pulsed as another beam struck it, white light flooding the room before fading into sparks. She staggered slightly, her hand trembling. "They've seen us," she whispered. Her voice carried both fear and resolve. The lights outside shifted, focusing on their building. In the distance, he heard the sound of metal tearing, like claws scraping through the sky. And then silence. The kind of silence that meant something was about to strike. She grabbed his wrist suddenly, her touch cold but strong. "Stay behind me," she said firmly. He tried to pull away, fear screaming at him to run, but her grip was unbreakable. Her glowing eyes locked onto his. "If you leave me now, they will find you, and you will not live to see the sunrise." Before he could answer, the window shattered. Glass exploded inward as a dark figure crashed into the room, its form half hidden by a cloak of shifting shadows. Its eyes burned red, its body tall and twisted, armored with black plates that shimmered like wet stone. The hunter, his breath caught in his throat, his body frozen in terror. The creature let out a sound, not a voice, but a growl that shook the walls. It smelled of metal and ash, its presence choking the air. She stepped forward, raising her hand again. The light returned, bending around her fingers like a living flame. The hunter lunged, faster than his eyes could follow. But she met it with a burst of energy, the shield cracking the air like thunder. The impact shook the room, sending him to the floor. He covered his head as the fight unfolded, light and shadow colliding in sparks and growls. For the first time, he saw her not as a neighbor, not as an alien beauty, but as a warrior. Every movement precise, every strike filled with both strength and desperation. The hunter roared, striking the shield again and again. She pushed back, sweat beading on her face, her glowing eyes locked in defiance. "Go back," she shouted, her voice strong and unyielding. But the creature did not retreat. Instead, more shadows moved at the window, their red eyes glowing in the night. There was not one hunter. There were many. His heart sank. The war she spoke of was not distant anymore. It was here, in his small apartment, in his city, on his world. And he was standing at the center of it, caught between fear and the impossible truth of who she was. The shield cracked under the force of the attack, light splintering like glass. She stumbled, her glow flickering for the first time. He rushed to her side without thinking, his fear drowned by something stronger, an instinct to protect her, just as she was protecting him. "Don't stop," he said, his voice shaking. "You can't stop now." Her eyes met his, glowing faintly through the sweat and strain. And for a brief moment, amid the chaos and the danger, a memory passed between them. The memory of two children sitting under the stars, promising never to forget each other. The hunters roared again, their shadows filling the room. And he knew, whatever came next, this was only the beginning of their fight. The room shook as the hunters pushed forward, their claws scraping against the fading shield. Sparks of light scattered across the floor, and the air trembled with their growls. He could hardly breathe, his body pressed against the wall, watching shadows crawl through the broken window. "Move!" she shouted, her voice sharp with urgency. Before he could think, she grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the hallway. The shield cracked again behind them, breaking apart like shattered glass. The hunters roared as the barrier collapsed, their red eyes burning through the dark. They ran down the narrow stairs of the building, footsteps echoing like thunder. Every shadow seemed alive. Every creak in the walls felt like something following. He stumbled, nearly falling, but she pulled him up with impossible strength. Her hand was cold, yet steady, her grip refusing to let go. The night outside was worse. The city streets that once felt ordinary were now alien, lit by beams of white light cutting through the clouds, scanning buildings one by one. Far above, massive shapes moved in the sky, half hidden by mist, their size so great that they looked like floating mountains. Ships, silent and terrifying, circling like predators. He froze at the sight, his chest tightening. But she didn't stop, dragging him into the shadows of a nearby alley. "They will find us if we stay here," she whispered, her glowing eyes scanning the rooftops. "We must keep moving." The alley stretched long and narrow, littered with trash and broken glass. Behind them, a low growl rolled through the street, followed by the heavy thud of something landing on the pavement. The hunter, its red eyes cut through the dark, searching. He pressed his back against the wall, his breath shallow. The creature's claws scraped along the ground as it stepped closer, sniffing the air like a predator. The glow of its armor shimmered faintly, reflecting the beams from above. She raised her hand, ready to strike again, but he grabbed her wrist, shaking his head. "They'll hear us," he whispered. For a moment, she hesitated, then slowly lowered her hand, her glowing eyes narrowing in thought. The hunter paused, its head turning. Then it let out a guttural roar, the sound splitting the night. The ground shook as more shadows moved in the distance, answering its call. "They know," she said quietly. "They've found our trail." Without waiting, she pulled him deeper into the alley, weaving through rusted fences and broken doors until they burst into another street. The city was no longer silent. People were waking, lights flickering on in windows, confusion spreading. But no one saw the hunters in the sky. No one saw the danger yet. The ships were hidden, their hunt silent except for those caught inside it. He struggled to keep up, his legs burning. "Where are we going?" he gasped. "Somewhere they cannot reach us," she said firmly. Her words carried no comfort, only urgency. A sudden screech cut through the air as one of the ships lowered, its massive form breaking through the mist. A beam of white light shot downward, striking the street behind them. The ground cracked, exploding in sparks and smoke. He fell forward, coughing, while she shielded him with her body, the glow of her aura deflecting some of the blast. "They will destroy the city if they must," she said grimly. "To them, humans are nothing more than dust in the way." Her words chilled him. These creatures weren't only hunting her. They were willing to burn everything around her. The thought made his chest ache with helpless anger. They turned a corner, sprinting through an abandoned construction site. Metal beams and broken walls loomed over them like skeletons in the night. The ground was uneven, every step a struggle, but there was no time to stop. The hunters' growls echoed closer, their shadows moving across the walls. Suddenly, one of the hunters leapt down from above, landing between them and the exit. Its body was massive, its red eyes glowing with hunger. The creature snarled, lowering its head like a beast ready to strike. He froze, fear rooting him to the spot. But she stepped forward, her aura blazing brighter than before. "Run when I tell you," she whispered, her voice calm despite the danger. The hunter lunged, claws slicing through the air. She raised her hands, light bursting outward like fire and lightning combined. The impact shook the ground, throwing sparks across the metal beams. The hunter roared in pain, stumbling back, but not defeated. "Now," she shouted. He didn't think, he just ran, his legs carrying him past the burning glow of their fight. Every breath burned. Every heartbeat felt like it might break his chest. Behind him, light and shadow clashed again, each strike shaking the night. She caught up to him moments later, her face pale but determined. More hunters dropped from the rooftops, their growls surrounding them like wolves in the dark. But she grabbed his hand again, her voice sharp and strong. We are not done yet. They pushed forward, weaving through the half-built towers of steel. Every step felt like the end, yet somehow they kept moving. The hunters followed, relentless, their shadows stretching long against the broken concrete. The chase had begun, and it would not end until one side fell. The night air was heavy with smoke and dust. The hunters still moved in the shadows behind them, their growls echoing like thunder in the ruined streets. Every step felt borrowed, every second stolen, yet they pressed forward, weaving through the half-dead city. At last, she pulled him into the broken shell of an old train station. The wide hall was empty, silent except for the creaking of rusted steel. For the first time since their chase began, they stopped to breathe. He collapsed against a cracked pillar, his chest rising and falling as if the air itself was too heavy to hold. She stood nearby, glowing faintly, her eyes fixed on the shattered windows, as if expecting the hunters to appear at any moment. "We can't keep running forever," he said between gasps. "They'll follow us no matter where we go." Her gaze lowered, her face shadowed with something deeper than fear. "You're right," she whispered. "They won't stop until either I'm gone, or they are." Her words sent a chill down his spine. He wanted to deny them, to argue, but the truth was too clear. The hunters were not chasing randomly. They were hunting her with purpose, with hunger. And by staying with her, he had already stepped into their war. She turned to him then, her glowing eyes softer, almost human for a moment. "There is something I must tell you," she said quietly. "Something I have held back since the moment I saw you again." He raised his head, still breathing hard. Her voice carried weight, each word trembling with the weight of years. "When we were children, I wanted to stay," she whispered. "My family forced me to leave, but my heart never left this world. Never left you." The words struck him harder than the hunter's roars. For a moment, the chaos of the night disappeared, replaced by the memory of two children sitting under the stars. Her small hand pointing upward, her laughter echoing softly. Back then, he thought her questions about leaving Earth were just a game. Now he saw them for what they were, seeds of a truth he could never have imagined. He swallowed hard, unsure how to answer. But she stepped closer, her aura casting light over his tired face. "You are the only reason I returned," she said. "Not because I wanted to relive memories, but because I cannot face what is coming alone. I need you, your courage, your humanity, the part of me that still belongs to this world." His chest tightened, torn between fear and something far deeper. He wanted to believe her, to accept that her words were more than desperation. But the danger outside pressed heavy, reminding him of the cost. "If I stay with you," he said slowly, his voice trembling, "those things will never stop hunting me. My life will never be the same again." She nodded, her glowing eyes glistening. "Yes," she admitted, "if you stay, you will carry my war, my enemies, my burden. But if you walk away now, they may leave you. You can go back to your life, your ordinary days. Forget this night, forget me." The silence stretched between them, heavy and sharp. It wasn't just a choice between safety and danger. It was a choice between two worlds, the one he had known all his life, and the one that had come crashing into it with the return of the girl he once called a friend. His hands shook as he stared at her. Part of him longed to run, to close his eyes and wake to a world where none of this was real. But another part, the part that still remembered her laughter, her promise at the oak tree, pulled him forward. How could he turn away from her now, when she had crossed the stars to find him? The ground trembled suddenly, dust falling from the cracked ceiling. Her eyes snapped toward the window, her aura flaring. "They're close," she said urgently. "We don't have time. Decide now, stay with me, or walk away forever." His chest pounded, his mind screaming in conflict. Every instinct told him to run, to save himself. But his heart, heavy with memories and the strange connection between them, whispered another answer. He stood slowly, his legs weak but steady, her glowing eyes locked on his, waiting, and though his voice shook, The words came firm. "I won't leave you," he said. "Not again." Her lips trembled into a small smile, filled with both relief and sadness. "Then our paths are one," she whispered. Her aura brightened, casting the hall in a soft glow. And for the first time that night, the fear in her eyes faded, replaced by something stronger: hope. But the hunter's growls returned, echoing closer, shaking the ground like drums of war. Their red eyes gleamed in the distance, their shadows stretching into the broken station. The choice had been made, and now, together, they would face the storm that was coming. The ground trembled as the hunters closed in, their red eyes glowing in the distance like burning coals. Inside the broken train station, dust fell from the ceiling, echoing footsteps and low growls surrounding them. He stood beside her now, no longer frozen, no longer uncertain. The choice had been made. He would not leave her. She looked at him, her glowing eyes softening for just a moment. "You will not regret this," she whispered. And before he could answer, the shadows surged forward. The hunters burst through the broken doors, their massive bodies filling the hall. Armor like black stone, claws sharp enough to slice steel, their presence smothered the air. He staggered back, but she stepped forward, her aura blazing brighter than ever before. Light exploded from her hands, filling the hall with a brilliance that pushed the shadows aside. The hunters roared, shielding their eyes, their claws striking against the floor. The sound was deafening, a clash of light and darkness. He shielded his face from the glow, watching as she moved like a storm, every step precise, every strike filled with power and defiance. This was no longer the girl he remembered from childhood. This was something greater, a warrior who carried the weight of two worlds. But even in the chaos, he saw her pain. Every blast of light strained her body, her breath heavy, her glow flickering under the force of the hunter's attacks. She was strong, but she was not endless. And the hunters knew it, pressing harder, roaring louder, their claws slicing closer each time. He wanted to help, to fight, but what could a human do against such monsters? His hands were empty, his body weak compared to their power. Yet still he refused to run. If she fell, he would fall with her. One hunter leapt forward, breaking through her light. Its claws swung down toward him, faster than he could move. But she appeared before him, her shield bursting outward, sparks flying as the strike landed. She cried out in pain, stumbling back, her glow dimming. He caught her before she fell, her body trembling. Her eyes met his, filled with both fear and something deeper. "This is why I needed you," she whispered. "Not for strength, but for faith. To remind me what I'm fighting for." The hunters circled closer, their growls shaking the walls. Her glow flickered weaker now, her body trembling under the weight of the battle. And then, in the silence between their roars, she spoke words that froze his heart. "There is one last way," she said softly, "but if I use it, I may not return. I may not remain the girl you remember." His chest tightened. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice breaking. She touched his cheek gently, her hand cold yet tender. "My power is tied to what I am. If I release it fully, it will burn away what is left of my human self." The words cut through him like a blade. If she used that final power, she would save him, save this city, but the girl he knew, the neighbor he once laughed with, will be gone forever. She would remain only as an alien light, and maybe a stranger. He shook his head, tears stinging his eyes. "There must be another way. There has to be." But she smiled faintly, sadness curling her lips. "There isn't," she whispered, "and I do not fear it, because I came back for you. And if this is the end of my human self, then let my last memory be yours." The hunters roared, charging forward in unison, their red eyes burning brighter. She stood, pulling away from his grasp, her aura rising like a storm. The air cracked with energy, the walls trembling as if the building itself could not contain her power. He reached for her, but the light was too bright. Her form glowed, her body almost dissolving into pure energy. And as the hunters struck, she released everything. The explosion was blinding. A wave of light shattered the walls, throwing the hunters back in screams of rage. Their bodies burned in the brilliance, their shadows tearing apart under the force of her power. The night outside lit like a second sun, the city awakening to the impossible sight of the war above. He shielded his eyes, falling to his knees as the station shook and crumbled. The roar of the hunters faded into silence, replaced only by the crackling hum of energy that lingered in the air. When the light dimmed, the hall was in ruins. The hunters were gone, their bodies dissolved into ash. But she was gone too. His chest tightened, his breath breaking as he searched the rubble. "Where are you?" he whispered desperately. For a moment, there was no answer. Then, faintly, a soft glow shimmered in the dust. She stood there, or what was left of her, her form faint, almost transparent, her human features blurred by the glow. Her eyes still shone, though softer now, fragile. She smiled weakly. "Do you still remember me, human?" she whispered. Her voice was the same, gentle, familiar, filled with the echo of their childhood. He rushed forward, his heart aching. "Yes," he said, his voice breaking. "I will never forget." Her glow flickered, her body fading like mist under sunlight. Her last words lingered as she disappeared into the air. "I never forgot you." And then she was gone. The hall fell silent, only the ruined walls and faint glow of dust remaining. He stood there, alone once more, but forever changed. The war of the stars had touched him, taken her away. But in his heart, the promise remained. He would remember, always. And somewhere in the vastness of the universe, he believed she still remembered too.